Mr. Dhir, thank you so much for joining us. Define disruption, what does it mean to you?
Well, in the current context, disruption could be seen in two parts. I think one part you could see it from the consumer standpoint and see how the whole market is changing from a consumer perspective. And I think the second part you could see it from the impact it has on people and people's life. Let's just build on the first part first. From a consumer perspective, if you think about 20 years back, and let's take a simple example of a bank perhaps. Banks were able to define what time they will provide service, what type of service they will provide, and consumers would really have to follow what was available to them at that point in time. Over the last 20 years, the paradigm has really shifted completely, and now the consumers define which bank they want to work with or they want to subscribe to and what services they want and when they want. So the power has really moved from the enterprises in that sense to the consumers. So that's a big disruption. I think it's happened over the last several years and continues to happen. On the people side, I think it also means from a technology providers like us, it really means that how you get ready for the change. The leadership style is changing. The traditional leadership style of top-down governance are no longer applicable. It's more participative governance. So it is a fair amount of disruption from a leadership contours perspective as well. So those are the two broad dimensions I would think.
Okay, speaking of the leadership perspective, what are the challenges that you might face, in terms of the organizational model or even in terms of, the workforce that you hire?
Yeah, I think it's a significant step change there. And if you really think about it, the way you engage with the team members is a much different ball game now. You would have to ensure that the environment that you provide to them, the ecosystem that you provide to them is much more participative, much more encouraging, and much more open and transparent. And I think every organization has to really walk their journey. And on the other side, you have to also make sure that you are more outside in looking rather than inside out looking rather than outside in looking. So you have to really think of the end consumer and the impact that your team members, your employees can make from a consumer perspective, and really make that as part of the day-to-day life cycle of the workplace.
One or two specific examples, where you might have, as a leader, faced challenges as far as disruption is concerned.
Yeah, it's I can relate a very interesting anecdote. I've been running large teams for a fairly long part of my career, and traditionally, about 10 years back, when I would do town halls and ask questions and open for questions, I'll probably get 4 or 5 questions, probably from known faces all the time. But now what we have started doing for the last 3-4 years is we would not do, while we'll do town halls, we'll also do what we call as Yammer sessions. So we'll invite people to have chat sessions with the leadership team. And to my surprise, now the questions I get is like in hundreds. And in half an hour, I'll be responding and pounding away the keyboard to respond to the question that people have. And there are some very tough questions, some very candid and open questions, they're very genuine questions at that. So I think the way people have adopted and embraced these technologies in a very significant way has opened, even from a leadership perspective, a level of connect that was hitherto probably not known to us.
Okay, technology and digital, what drives digital? Technology, or does digital drive technology?
So I think from our perspective, the way VIRTUSA sees us today, we think the whole change is really ultimately driven by the individual and the consumer. The consumers are having the ultimate power as to where they want to put their money, where they want to invest, what choices they want to make. And that is really revolutionizing the digital strategy for the companies, and that in turn defines the technology. So in my mind, it is the consumer defining the digital game plan for the enterprises, which in turn decides the technology.
The digital space is changing really fast. How important or how relevant is it to have a plan, and can that plan be followed?
Quite candidly, you could have a macro level blueprint in mind, but you have to be very agile and nimble as an organization to keep adapting to it. I think it will be hard for any organization to say this is a very definitive plan that I want to implement in 5 years. You could have a broad contours of what you want to do, and within those contours you really make sure that at the center of that universe is the consumer, and keep evolving, because technology is changing literally every 3 months now, and you have to have an adaptable plan that can adapt to the changes in the technology and the needs of the consumer as a result.
How can technology be used to find solutions to unknown problems?
Well, I think that's been the case for the longest of the time. Technology has been used, whether if you think of medical science, whether you think of geopolitical space, whether you think of the telecom industry, any industry you pick up, technology is beginning to solve some significant problem in a day-to-day life. There are examples abound, right from healthcare available to at the tip of your fingers. Some solution that we as a company have built, which really allow people to have easy access to medical help, especially when you're in old age. Those things were absolutely not available. You could be a 70+ citizen and not have easy access to a telephone infrastructure or health infrastructure, and really be at the mercy of some of your neighbors or some of your relatives helping you out. But not anymore. Everybody has access to an 0800 number, and hence they can call a medical emergency. So I think it's many ways simplifying life for all of us and really helping the experience for all the citizens.
But so far it's been only used to solve known problems. Most of the problems that you just mentioned are actually problems which were known, and therefore technology came in as a solution provider. The digital world is changing that. What are the challenges that technology companies like yours face then?
I think the only challenge is, can you change fast enough? That's the only challenge. If you really think about it, Facebook or Twitter didn't really exist, and I don't think anybody even felt the need for it. But now they have become mainstream for many, many years now, and I think the adoption of those tools and platforms and ability to change with changing times is really the big part of the change that most organizations are going through. As the old saying goes, the biggest problem in the new century is not the change in itself, but your ability to unlearn and learn again.
Okay. What is the one big disruption that you foresee in 2016?
I think in the coming several months and quarters, the adoption of from a cloud perspective seems to be pretty imminent, and I think we will continue to see more empowerment with the consumer, and within that underneath technology from a cloud perspective is something that we feel will continue to take a lot of mind share.
In terms of from the consumer's point of view, which is the one sector that will see a dramatic change in 2016?
Well, traditionally, the banking and healthcare sectors have been at the forefront of it, and telecom included. So these three sectors will continue to be at the forefront of it, because that's where traditionally these sectors have led. Although technology disruption starts in the technology industry itself, but the applicability of that really comes in the banking and telecom and healthcare sectors, and we feel that's where the bulk of consumer-related revolution will continue to happen.
All right, Mr. Dhir, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.